Up y'all, we're out here at Edenville Township at Swamp Memorial Hall for a budget meeting, budget workshop meeting. Just found it kind of interesting, see what happens, see what kind of information is going to be public, and thank you all for watching. Stick around, see what happens. Appreciate all you guys that watch the videos. Let's get into it.
I'm sorry?
I said I must have left my eyes in the car.
I have my ears unplugged and I wake up folks because my hearing aids are at home.
Okay, pass something out for you.
Yeah, there are two copies of that list of agendas.
Okay,
And it's kind of correlated and kind of not.
okay.
My tired old printer doesn't work quite so fast. So
No, mine doesn't at home either.
in my effort to reduce paper, I don't print very often, so.
I have an Epson and it uses, I don't know, the ink comes in bottles.
Yeah,
And I've had it for 4 years and I print everything. And I mean, I'm just on my second set of
That
bottles.
sounds good.
That thing is awesome.
we have a gently used printer that is at least 12 years old. So yes, Crystal, it is probably time for a new one.
These, I think, are the agendas.
I don't need, I just need a copy of the agenda.
These are them, these are all of them, so, and there's only gonna be 3 of us here tonight, so 1 for you, 1 for Art, 1 for me.
Okay.
And then,
That's the next one.
yep,
Yeah.
and then. Okay, these are the,
I was bored,
Thank you, Jim.
so I decided to come over here.
Anybody else wants it?
always.
Well, I hope it is a good meeting, but hopefully not too exciting.
Art, I'm gonna separate these by.
Okay, there were 2 complete packets and then 2 sets of Excel printouts, 1 for you and 1 for Jim.
Okay, I might not be doing it exactly how you want me to do it, but. These are the 2 completes that I'm gonna set here, and then,
We're getting better at every meeting. We've got agendas for folks this time. Hey, at the end of 4 years, we may actually have this down. I wouldn't guarantee anything, but.
It's a learning process.
it really is.
See how Mr. Hoots is doing this evening.
Okay. I think I see what you were doing here.
Can you get out of there?
I thought you were gonna have these wrapped around like we were just a cozy little family.
Well, your
Now
guys
you
are
gotta-
welcome. I mean,
Now
it's
you
kind
gotta
of like
move the
church,
table to
You got one of
that
those?
You're
off.
taking that? Is he allowed to take them and I'm allowed to take?
Well, that's what you guys are for, yes.
Okay,
What's that
but
stuff
I
over
didn't
there?
know, but then you don't have a printer, you're okay?
I don't need that, because I do
Okay.
soft copy.
Okay, I'm old fashioned. And
Glad
then,
you qualified that.
Is that your backup data? Is that what that is?
I'm old and old fashioned, I'm just all the way across the board, all the old aspects, saggy, wrinkly,
I was
gray.
telling I'm throwing out files from 1965. It's time.
That was a wonderful year. My kid's sister was born
Oh,
that
how
year.
nice.
I was not born yet.
I was old by then.
You have 2 copies of this.
Well, there should have been, 1 for you, 1 for Jim.
Okay, I've read mine, but that's fine, okay. And then you have 2 copies of this.
1 for you, 1 for Jim.
Okay. And this is an extra agenda. We're good.
All righty. Folks, I apologize. As I shared with my colleagues on the board,
Thank you.
I have a rather gently used printer, and it took a little longer to print in color for them than I had hoped to.
Recording in progress.
And if you guys want to scooch in a little bit or whatnot, I promised I did shower, I did use deodorant.
Me too.
You did or didn't?
I did. But I have been hanging out with the dog.
Uh-oh. I've been hanging out with my member too.
So, yeah. I'm a little partial to mine, but that's okay.
Yeah, yours is white, mine is blue.
That's true. Actually, apricot is what the veterinarian has on that. Folks, I would call this meeting to order. If we could have the invocation, and I would ask folks to please bow their heads and say, Heavenly Father, as we prepare to go through this budget planning workshop to this evening, please be with us. Grant us wisdom, grant us grace. Let us make smart and wise decisions for the Township of Edenville. We ask for your blessing upon us in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask my colleagues this evening if they believe we are in compliance or at least conformance with the OMA. That's wonderful. I would welcome folks to our budget workshop. We've done a fair bit of work in preparation for this evening. The draft is literally hot off the press, or the ink might still be drying. I have taken and sent this off to Schumacher, and they will be publishing this on the website as well. For those of you wanting to kill a tree or two, we have it there for you, and we will work out as to what we do for the actual GAA, if we print copies out for folks or not, but we will have the PDFs available at least a couple of days prior to the meeting start. You have my promise on that. I want to let folks know that this is not only being recorded, but transcribed. If you do not wish to be on the recording, please leave now. Couple of other housekeeping things. We talked already about our coffee with the council. I would say that is one of the few things that I have enjoyed since coming into office, where every single comment was positive. And so I believe we'll do one or two more. We had some challenges. We had some great ideas. I've run into Art Buck 3 times since the meeting, and he actually thanked us for being a great audience, asking good questions, and is enjoying working with us. So I just want to thank everyone for that and let you know that we will be scheduling more in the future. And
That was very interesting. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was very interesting when he was here.
well, that was always the
Yes.
intention, to try to share this information, because it's kind of a big secret, I think, folks. And it's not, it's just people don't know and understand. And so we're really trying to help them out here. With that, I also want to comment, while I've had universal happiness around that, I've now experienced a few Mr. Supervisor out in the township moments. I was filling my car up with gas at the Edenville market and ran into a fella who used to be a friend. He he announced to me that he got this tax bill for a parcel that he had purchased and couldn't understand why he was getting two capital assessments, one on his primary residence and one on this adjacent parcel. And I explained to him as best I could that if he had not combined it by, I think it was February of '24,
Yeah, I think so.
that in fact, he is now saddled with two capital assessments.
Ooh.
And he told me to fix that for him, and I told him that we could probably put both bills in one envelope if that would help him, but, he didn't see the humor. He explained to me the Four Lakes Task Force paperwork that would come to him was good for fire starting and nothing else, and that he didn't acknowledge them, and that he held Edenville Township responsible for his capital assessment. I explained that while we handle the billing, actually,
They have
the
nothing.
county does the billing, we're kind of a pass-through on that. I realized that that was my second such interaction I've had in the last month where residents were confused. Well, he left in kind of a huff and said we could no longer be considered friends, and I told him I was sorry about that, but I understood. I would just make an announcement to folks that Edenville Township does have nothing to do with the capital assessment or the special capital assessments or the special assessment district associated with the Four Lakes Task Force. If folks have any questions or whatnot, we're more than willing to entertain them, but there's very little we can say or do with that. I guess that was the end of my announcement. We're missing a clerk this evening. Unless folks object, I'll take notes and attempt to do minutes, and I will be having the benefit of my meeting recorder here helping me out. Okay, so roll call of Sperling.
Here.
Kay Peters is absent. A. Peters is here. Tammy Ludi is absent. And Crystal Starkey.
Here.
I would ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Crystal, would you like to,
Yep, I'll second that.
any other discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. We have an affirmation there. Item number 9.
But you missed 8.
Whoop. Nope. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Number 8 is the approval of the May amendments minutes as amended by Starkey. She found a number of places where she discovered I couldn't type her name. I did make those corrections. I had a few other things. I couldn't spell February correctly. And a few,
Starkey correct.
I'm sorry?
Or Starkey correct.
Yeah, no, well,
It's fine.
I saw that. It looked
I
nice
did-
in red though.
I did better in my spelling in my foreign language in high school than I ever did in English.
I'm trying to
will go
approve
with
the-
correct. Go
I'm
ahead.
trying to approve the minutes, there's just one more.
If you would send me that, I will make the change. I assume it's another one of my boo-boo typos.
Yes, it's very
Yeah.
minor.
On page?
Got it?
12 point J number 2.
Ah, okay.
She wants to change a word.
Yeah, it just, no, it's this, the spelling.
Okay. Now, I could make a joke by saying that's why I went into engineering, but I think we all know that. Crystal moves. Jim, would you second?
Support with all the changes.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. We have minutes. Okay, item number 9 is, our last piece of transactional business. I received over the holiday a PDF of the signed resignation of our clerk, and I move to accept the resignation. Do I have a second?
Second.
I would just like to say.
Comments?
Thank you. I know there's been a lot of difficulty since we took office in November in a lot of different ways, and I'm sad to see this resignation, just as I was the previous. I think it's a loss for Edenville Township.
I just want to thank her for her service.
Yeah.
And Jim, do you have any comments?
No, it's a shame that you run for office, you ran your during campaign and everything was, I thought, working well. And then after in office, it didn't go well. And I knew, whatever happened between certain people, and we said a prayer one time, hoping we'd forget it, but it didn't seem to go away, unfortunately. It didn't go out of sight, you know. God teaches you to forgive, because he will forgive you what you do. He forgives me what I do. And I pray to the Lord every single day, and I pray for Kathy's mother tonight, because I know she's also doing well. And I pray for Tammy, because the things that basically honored her for some of the things she did, I think she couldn't let go of them. And that's a shame. She's a good worker. She was. She did a lot of things, and I appreciate the flag she did when I said that would make a perfect flag, and it did. It is the perfect flag. But yeah, it's going to be a shame. But it is what it is.
I think we all, like I said, appreciate her efforts and wish her the best. I believe a roll call vote would be in order. Jim?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're voting to just accept it.
Accept it, yeah. So,
Does that mean she can come back like you and your wife did?
Art? Yes. Motion carried and approved. Ma'am, we've got a small audience and I'll entertain some conversation. The difference being our resignations were never accepted.
I understand that.
And so she is now resigned. If she wants to run again, she's more than,
I just feel bad because I thought she was trying to do a really good job.
well, that takes us actually into our next thing. At the last meeting, we got asked to move public comment at the beginning of the meeting. You'll notice in the draft agendas out that I did.
Yes, you did.
On that. And we'll keep it there until someone asks to move it to the end, and we're flexible if nothing else. I would say we're opening for public comment. Do you mind if I count yours as a public comment?
Yeah, you can, you definitely.
We'll say at 6:47. We open for public comment. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Closed public comment at 6:51. Before that, I did want to also point out, and again, I apologize, our treasurer Kathy is up in North Dakota with her mother, who's not doing very well at all. She's comatose, but comfortable, I would say.
That's right.
And so we're kind of hanging out waiting for some things to unfold. But our thoughts and prayers are with her. Now to go to perhaps,
Close public comment.
I did,
you?
yeah, at 6:51. I put together a set of spreadsheets here, And for those that take a look at this, I changed from what we had at the previous meeting. It's all highlighted in yellow. And so I took and moved some things in. I called it 2020, 25, 26 proposed on that.
Are your greens are increases, is that what I'm seeing?
The greens are just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. Everything else was kind of a copy over
Okay,
with that. I propose eliminating the deputy supervisor thing. I have no plans to hire one this year. Perhaps a year prior to the end of term or something, we'll reconsider it, but I just don't see any reason to put that in the budget for what we have. We have carrying forth the same salaries for both clerk, treasurer, deputy clerk, deputy treasurer. I did up the trustee's salary from 5217 to 6,000 just to keep things simple. That is more than covered by the offset of eliminating the deputy supervisor position.
we have to vote on all these, those are just your proposals.
That's a proposal, and you certainly can on that. And I think that if we don't have consensus on that this evening, then I'll roll things back for that. I also listened loud and clear last year about salaries that our fire chief was underpaid. And so I made a proposed $500 adjustment to his salary from $4,500 to $5,000. And I know you don't put a dollar figure on what these guys do for us, because they are there for us day in and day out. But just a little bit of a recognition there. I know that Roger had said he needs a second captain's position, but was eliminating the training officer. And so I did some presto changeo moving, and so I eliminated salary for the training officer, but moved it down and gave him a second captain's billet on that. Also bumped the secretary by $100 and proposing, and I should have flagged that green, please forgive me.
I see it.
Oh, okay.
You say second chief?
Second captain.
We're gonna go through all these, no?
We are.
Okay.
And then finally, I talked about, I heard loud and clear last year, a lot of support for trying to increase the cost per fire run, and I changed that from 20 to 30. But salaries are the same. Did you guys want to go through everything or just talk about these one at a time? I'm open to whatever you guys want.
I'm not sure, Art, could we just talk about what's on this first page?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go. I'm not in favor of increasing the trustee salary.
Okay.
Jim, this is where you either agree or disagree with me.
Well, as long as we have the per that they provided, we'll go back on the per meeting, the special meetings, planning meeting, the zone meeting, then.
You're talking about the $50 for
That
ZBA
stays
and
there.
planning commission?
Yeah, that stays there. I'm not in favor of a raise either. I don't need a raise. I think we should leave it like it is, as long as the per diem for the extra meetings stay. Which is, it won't add to as much of what they're talking here, the 6,000 bracket.
Tied to that, that's fair, okay, I understand, that's tied to that, I thought, please help me remember, maybe you do too, but I thought that we passed that the secretary, and if it wasn't us, then it was the term before us, that the secretaries of those commissions, like planning commission, board of review, and ZBA, those three, the secretaries get 75.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, the board of review not. because that's me.
But that's you,
And
that's
that's a
statutory
statutory.
duty, so you don't, okay.
I
So,
just show
so
up.
for planning commission then and ZBA, not board of review, those secretaries get
75.
75.
Okay,
All the other members get 50. Is that, am I correct?
That was some time ago.
It was,
Yeah, that was quite a while ago.
it gets a little fuzzy.
That's, no,
okay, I will,
but we should, like you have it down here for the meetings, it should be up here for trustee meeting also, and then that budget item as a separate item. You have it down here for,
Wait, what are you saying?
board review 15, no,
well, and I will change this back to 5217.
Yeah. no problem with that.
And guys, yours was the only one that was monthly. Can we just put down 5217 annually? Or was there some magic from the prior GAAs? And I'm gonna look at our previous supervisor, Miss Such, if she remembers why the trustees might only get paid on a monthly as opposed to a.
You were paid monthly.
Yeah, but everyone else's salary was rolled up as an annual.
Hmm.
I see what you're saying, so the total being 5217 is
That's
a
for
weird
two- that's
number
for-
because that's a monthly
That was what
Two
you guys were getting. No, that was per trustee.
per.
Yeah.
I remember having this debate last term and I don't remember now why we settled on.
I mean, I'm okay going back to dividing that by 12 and just making that your monthly, but then you guys be the only ones, and I just kind of feel goofy about that,
Is it easier for the treasurer if it's an annual
for the clerk.
or the clerk?
Well, the math is just make sure it's a divisible by 12 number. And
I thought the amount was,
what I did is I
Did
took
you
your
get
monthly and I just multiplied it by 12.
isn't it 400 a month?
430, 475.
Yeah, that.
Oh, okay,
I thought it was 475. Yeah.
right on. Whichever way is easiest for,
I just like the consistency.
yeah.
And what I'm gonna use this to draft all the resolutions for all the.
It makes, annual would be fine, I don't think that there's
Okay.
an issue, I just wouldn't want to see an increase.
Okay.
I am in favor of the increase for the fire chief.
Okay, I just picked that number out, I mean, I'm okay with that number, but I just thought that was.
I think that's a fair number. I do have two questions. Explain to me again why, so you plugged in numbers for a second fire captain?
Because they don't use a training officer, the deputy fire chief is acting as training officer.
I see. Okay.
And Roger
thank you.
now has a
Mhm.
captain, one captain, and he said he'd really like one captain for each of the fire stations. I said, you can handle that.
So we basically moved that money
Yep,
that we were gonna pay a training officer, and now we'll have a captain for each.
yes.
Thank you.
That's two captains, right?
Yes.
Well, they're quite a ways apart, aren't they? They almost need that, don't they? I mean,
Me and I agree, that's why
Yeah.
I don't think this is a contentious thing. It just made it easier.
And we learned valuable lessons when the floods happened and we couldn't access fire two without driving 45 minutes to an hour. It's part of, a major part of the detail in our grant applications is that's a lesson learned that we don't ever wanna have to relearn.
Mhm.
We need gear at both stations. Because if we can't access one or the other,
Yeah.
we need to be able to serve our people on both sides of the river.
Lake, please, I've been told,
Okay.
it's coming back.
Yeah, those assessments are killing me. Anyway, Fire secretary, you bumped that up to,
$500.
yep.
And some of that's just for added paperwork that they've been handling.
I'll put it on as $30.
I picked a number, I
Yeah.
have no idea if that's,
I thought we bumped that to 25 last term. We didn't do that?
nope,
Okay,
you talked about it, and
okay.
then they
We didn't
said
do it.
no, because we,
And I think it's good. I keep the
Okay.
meetings at the 20.
yeah, that, I thought
Yeah.
that was fair.
Yeah. I have no problem with that.
We need our fire guys.
Okay.
Art, I don't see it in here, but if somewhere where you have like Board of VOR meeting, Edenville, PC meeting, DBA, somewhere in there, you might wanna put the secretary for both.
I put a note that I'll figure out how to
Okay.
add
The
a
secretary-
$25 for the secretary. I know Haydanek, I can't speak to the ZBA, Haydanek always just is,
But the secretary would be in charge of the OMA,
yeah.
not the
No,
clerk, not the clerk, they would, that secretary would be in charge of that, they would be in charge of keeping the minutes, the agenda,
I'm
all of that,
comfortable with it, yeah.
so. Thank you. Now we get into the small print.
All right. Well, that's why I kept a soft copy.
Mhm.
Okay, next page is a roll-up, and everything that isn't highlighted in yellow was on what we had the last time. And what I did was, and actually, if we go to the next page, which is the 25-26 summary, that might be more instructive,
What's YOY?
year over year.
Thank you.
Because the roll-up became an eye test, and candidly, I wasn't interested in an eye test. The first row is all of the departments. And everything was alphabetical except for general fund. I don't know why they did that last, but they did. The columns are 24-25 expense. And that was recorded numbers by the prior board. I'm sorry, 24-25 was the expense that they had approved. The prior board approved in the budget.
Okay,
The bank balances were as of 3/31. And that's just what we had in the bank. The 25-26 is a roll-up of the proposed expenses that will go into the detail in the following pages.
I thought the cemetery fund was a self-sufficient fund, they fund themselves, I mean,
I don't see how they can, given
that was the plan
I
when we
understand,
created it,
but I'll show you what I did when we get to the cemetery.
okay,
And we can, again, we can change anything you guys want, but, fire department, again, is kind of, guys, since I didn't have really good expense data for this past year, what I did was I took a plug from what we proposed spending this year and just kind of carried that forward. I made some adjustments and I will highlight those. And you will see that we basically pulled about $155,000 in spending out of the proposed spending for the coming year from last year. So it's actually a lower budget by about $170,000.
so I don't see a number in here, what you're proposing that would be the budgeted amount, or am I missing that?
That's proposed expense.
Proposed expense, so that is what you're proposing, that's half for the cemetery,
Yes.
why?
Because if you go over to the notes, that the cemetery in 24-25 had the columbarium expense. And I don't see that
Okay,
coming forth again.
okay.
And that's supposed to generate revenue also, as it's
It is.
supposed to generate
It's
revenue.
supposed to, and you'll see I added some things in it. And again, when we get to this is just a roll-up, and if this is too
I see
confusing,
what you're, okay.
this is kind of a macro view of things. What I was trying to do is say, guys, fire department, I pulled a few things out of their expense line. And I added some others in, but if you look at that cemetery year over year, it's down 18,000, fire department is down 11,150. The improvement, which is kind of our rainy day fund, I left alone. The Lake Special Assessment District for weed and noxious plants, I bumped that up $4,900 for that. And we can talk about that when we get to the special assessment district. That's just a proposed dollar figure. Parks and Rec, I took down from 31,750 down to 20,000. Private roads, I didn't put anything in, but I think we need to look at a baseline of adding something in, because right now we don't have any money put aside. It's for those people who live on those roads. But I know that the last board zeroed all the assessments out, and I think putting at least $25 or something might be meaningful, just in case there's a pothole or something that needs to get fixed. Solid waste, I'm gonna say we are in a world of hurt there. We budgeted for this year $212,000 expense. It's gonna come in closer to 250. And that's because the new contract is higher than the old rate. And we have the breakdown and whatnot. We've got some money in the bank to cover that, but we will eat through that.
We're all down to nothing.
It will, and we might end up having to,
We can't have that.
right, so we're gonna have to up that assessment. And we can think about what it is, but it's a pretty significant bump. Because what appears to have happened, and again, Sharon, I'll have to defer to someone who's been around longer than I, that every time we do a new contract, we would project out the cost of the contract over the life of the contract and kind of pick a midpoint, raise it to the midpoint. So the first couple of years, you were actually putting money away. The last couple of years, you were always covering it. That's kind of what it looks like from what I've seen in looking at some of the prior financials. When Craig comes back, he can shed some light too on that.
What is this on December?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on December's tax bill. Yeah. All special assessments are on the December bill.
Along with quarterly tax group.
I think we were fortunate that we locked in a 10-year
10-year
agreement
plan,
with Waste Management that was only inflation, which was
Remarkable.
a once in a lifetime experience.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, good job.
You were brilliant.
Yeah, no, and we just kind of fell into it. No, it was a wonderful thing for us. We were,
But if we look at our race is 180 something, I think it or something, so in
And I
that
think we're
nature.
probably gonna have to bump it up to about 2.25.
Well, just for a little insight, our little church down here is, on M30.
Yep.
Our assessment comes in quarterly at over $500.
Oh, our township is doing, I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, we're-
I looked around in some of the other townships
Yeah.
and I wanna congratulate the prior board. They did a nice job of negotiating what I think to be a very competitive.
and I think if we stay under the 250 mark someplace, we're still way below what some of the other townships are charging. And I think what we do is just fine. Because I like, that little church, and then we have one pickup, and we don't, we probably empty the trash every 3 months in the little church. But it's $570 per quarter.
Wow.
You know, unbelievable, but ours, and I look at ours, and I go, what a difference we've had, you know. Yeah, we just, I see that, I can see it's a raise, but not a killer, because we have so many other things.
Well, I agree, but I also know we don't wanna run into
No, we don't
deficit.
want to short, no, I don't know.
And maybe what we do is we do it just enough to cover this year, and instead of doing it like what they've done in the past, we might have to advance it a little bit every year. I don't like nickel and diming, but that might be just given all the other things going on.
December is gonna hurt.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be, I made my statement at the beginning when I lost a friend because of that, and it's like, I think there are a lot of people who didn't read the mail.
Mhm.
I read the mail, it still hurts.
Oh, yeah.
I understand,
know it's
well,
coming.
it hurts, but you were aware. The guys that are unaware, that's the ones I feel sorry for.
Well, they're blaming the wrong persons, we have no control nor any say in it. You know, unfortunately, we have to collect it and pass it on, and that hurts too.
The next line item is Swanton. They spent $37,460, and I'm proposing, based on what I looked at, dropping that down 9,000 to 28,460.
We had a lot of unforeseen things that had to happen that,
The improvements,
that we won't need to do.
Yeah, for
The
some time.
cabinets,
the bathrooms and flooring and a lot of things.
So anyhow,
Yeah.
with that, we're within $500 of what we're projecting for coming in on it. I think we're okay there. Water District 1, again, these are just kind of plug numbers. I took a swag at what I expect. Every year we collect a little bit less on the assessment, so I tried to do the math and generate that, and then we owe a little bit less.
Right.
And so
Or balance out.
I think we're doing okay.
Can you help me out understand, the 25-26 proposed expense, 37,160,
Yes, ma'am.
and then proposed income's 37,500.
Mhm.
Significant, $3,500.
And again, those are all gonna change because I don't still have the final assessor numbers, so I don't really know what our income is going to be. I requested that from Pete.
Let me see.
And so some of this could go up and go down a little bit. I will say that we do have a challenge with the water district funding, but that's not for this meeting, and that's certainly not going to hit us for at least 5 years. But at the end of that, we originally, when we set up the water district, we expected to have a lot more uptake than came in. And so the assessments were based on a number, let's say 2,000, and we only got 1,500. And so there is a gap on that. And that's just something that, when this all comes due in 2050. And again, I don't have all the numbers, and before we have that conversation, we need to be very specific, but I just want you guys to be
Deep
aware.
dive on it.
General fund, went from 832 down to 694, and that pulled out 137,000, and some of that was ARPA related, and one time I shaved a little bit here and shaved a little bit there. That's still 200,000 more than we're projecting for income, but again, that's keeping all allocated to the roads. Because if you recall from the road commission meeting, their best guess is if we don't spend an average of 350,000 combined dollars of theirs plus ours, we won't keep up with the proposed maintenance that they see.
This is what happens if you underspend on roads for several years.
I'm just,
Yeah,
so I carried that forward and I believe that
you
we
can't underspend
we need to keep track of
on roads.
that. So at a roll-up, we're looking at proposed income of 1.429 million and a proposed expense number of 1.629 million. So again, it's 200,000 more than we were taking in. Vast majority of that goes to roads. On that.
That will come out of the savings of my class
Yep.
investments.
Mhm. And while we can do that for a while, we can't, Do that forever.
Yeah.
but it's something where I think we're there. That's kind of the summer. The big picture view. If we go to the next page, which is special assessment districts. I put down for the lake assessment, just the standard 3% escalation that is in the proposed paperwork. And that says that for direct access lots, that's $102 that will be on, $102.02 will be on your December tax bill. And then backlot folks are $51.01 for that. And I think that gets us in the game. Dave Rothman, who is vice president of the Four Lakes Task Force, called me and said, hey, you guys need to make sure that you understand that this year mowing season is the last one you're going to have while the water's down, that their plan is to start refilling the lake next spring, Sanford Lake next spring. And so they're gonna come back with a list of recommendations for us. But they said where we have been mowing, we've really done a nice job of keeping things down. And the plan that was put in place, and so I'm gonna give you guys credit. Thank you for doing that, because we don't have as big a mess as it could have been.
We don't have real big trees, we got small trees.
Well, and a lot of the trees just stopped coming back,
Yeah.
after you whack them enough. So that's there. Is there any questions?
You gonna go over the subdivisions at all, just been a long way now?
I kind of am gonna look for some guidance from you guys. I'm thinking we probably ought to put at least a $25 kind of thing for them, for the private roads, because right now, most of the folks don't have any money in the bank, in their private road fund. And if there's like a pothole or anything like that, we don't have any money at all to allocate to that. And so I don't know what your guys' thoughts were. I know that last year, the only assessment levied was on, I'm sorry, there were two,
Woodlands.
Fox Road and Woodland.
Is that for snow plowing?
I think that covered the snow plowing.
What are the others? How do they get their roads plowed if they,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, but that's not the township's responsibility.
So you applied a 3%, so if you
No,
look.
that was, I did in this table that you have there, but that came from the actual special assessment district resolutions. It's capped going up 3%.
The last time it will go up too.
What did you say, Jim?
You said, well, we got to 49 on the, like,
At the bottom row,
If you look at to the right, at
yeah,
the very bottom, see 2025, so Lakeview would be 5139.
Same for
Sanford
Lake.
Lake would be 101.52, Woodland Bluffs 26.73, Bluff Creek 50.40, Campbell Court 69.21. Okay, those are just the 3% though numbers, right, Art?
Correct.
Mhm.
And
That's,
so then you're saying to add to that?
no, I'm saying we ought to at least pick some number in their range, because last year you guys zeroed it all out. If I look at the special assessment, the road bank account, and the funds for each of the different private roads, there's hardly any money at all in there. And if they get like a pothole, we won't have money put aside for that to cover it. Now, it is their road, it is their responsibility, but I think to try to at least be helpful and responsible, we ought to put some money away. And the Fox Road folks will have to bill them for plowing, as I recall.
Mhm. It's always been up to the private road owners to make it,
Determination,
yeah,
okay?
and I think if, you know,
I think we keep it at the 3%, and if they want additional services, or they want, they decide.
So we,
And come to
well,
us.
last year, the board didn't assess anything to them, because they
any
said,
additional.
no, they
Or
didn't
anything
assess
at all.
they didn't collect any money.
Yeah.
Except for Fox Road
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
snowplow and Woodland Estates, because I
So
think,
who paid, I guess I, like a dog with a bone,
I don't know how the other people got their roads plowed.
but somebody paid somebody to plow it, I mean, obviously, or you'd have been getting phone calls, why isn't my road plowed?
Uh-huh.
Which we did not get.
Which you did not pay for, but it got done, right?
I don't
Well, I
know,
don't know that we didn't pay for it, we didn't get complaints, we didn't.
I mean, we didn't get any bills, I'm unaware if we got any bills from the road commission aside from the ones we were expecting.
I didn't know that the road commission was doing private roads, the last time I knew it was Delisle doing it.
Or Delisle's plowing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The road commission will do maintenance for the private
Right.
roads
Understand that,
that they have, that they have a relationship with, and they would love us to not come back to them,
Yeah,
but they will continue to honor those. And the private comment was, you're a fool if you don't keep us on the hook for it.
but I guess perhaps you should check with Delisle and see if he plowed those
Yeah.
other private roads, and how did he get reimbursed? I mean, they're not gonna do it for free, somebody paid something.
So I'm just,
I completely agree, I know the county wants to get away from these, but
yeah,
too
no, I
bad,
think,
so sad, we're keeping them for our people.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Because the reason the county stopped is because the snow plowers would forget, oops, how much time did I spend? I just did a private road because it's easier to do it, and then I forgot how much time I really spent, and it was a disaster. And I understand the road commission's
Yeah.
viewpoint. We all need to use our tax dollars wisely.
Could that be something that we look up for our next?
For the actual
GAA,
GAA, yeah, absolutely.
Did those, how did the plowing?
Crystal gave me an
occur?
assignment.
No.
That's okay. No, that's fine.
I'm just, now I'm curious, I approve all the bills every month, I should know this, but I can't say that I do. It seems like we paid those, Sharon, and then if we paid them, and we weren't collecting that, where did it come from? So now I wanna know the answer to that.
And we don't want it to happen again.
Yeah. I mean, people who owe should pay. Anyhow, that's the purpose of this. And by the way, I had to do the little table here because I just couldn't keep straight in my mind what the maximums were and do the escalation. So that's, if that helps you guys, then I'm great. Fire millage, I left it alone, which is the next page.
Yeah.
On that. Cemetery. In 24-25, the budget was $34,100, of which $12,000 was for the columbarium. There was a $20,000 due from the general fund, and there was, I recall the conversation that the sale of plots and niches, is that what they're called, would fund all of this and make this cemetery self-sustaining. I don't believe we had a lot of sales, and I don't believe there was not a huge uptake on columbarium niches. I'm unaware. I could be wrong. I have,
The 20,000 was ARPA money too, wasn't it?
no, we ended up taking that out of the general fund because we, instead of using ARPA for that, we used all the ARPA for the truck. And I personally, at the end of the day, money's money, but I felt that
How
was.
does the cemetery use that much money? I mean,
So
I
if
know
you-
I'm not supposed to comment now, but there's only three of us
This is a
here.
great question. From what we have, there was, cemetery manager and payroll taxes for the cemetery manager is about $2,600. They had $1,600 in supplies. I increased that from 16 to 2,400 because I know we need to get a couple of things for the cemetery. We did get new prints. Brent had asked for new prints, and we were able to get hold of Lapham, who did the prints in Clare, and they ran us off some sets of them, which
That was one of my questions.
I think they actually gave them to us. I'm not certain. They sent us a PDF so that we can print additional, but they will cost to get printed. But they were incredibly helpful, and I'll just do a shout out. Kathy was great. She called them and talked to them.
Well, I know the
But
gates and everything are horrible. I
yard-
need to go paint them even. I mean,
Yard maintenance is about $10,000, and that's for the mowing
Yeah.
of the cemetery.
so I know the old cemetery, you could kill yourself driving down that road in there.
So, and then, so that's where that's $14,000. I said we would take 10,000 from the general fund and we're gonna sell $5,000 of new plots and niches. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but
A lot of people bought them in 2020 in there when they were getting the stimulus checks.
yes, ma'am.
And
We had,
I think that's
70
probably why so many haven't been sold since.
could very well
Just
be.
as need be, we'll buy one, Uncle George died or whatever. But
So, anyhow, that's kind of how I got to where I got to on that one. They had a line item in there for the sexton of $6,500. I took that out because to me, that's a direct pass-through. If the sexton charges to open up a brick, that ought to just get billed to the estate of the deceased.
I thought it did. I paid $500 to have
Right,
it
well, that's-
graved out.
Yeah.
Ma'am, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Should pass through.
So I just, that shouldn't even show up in the budget at all. I just, a pass-through.
What was the,
I made a note there that it should be.
yeah, I see that, what was, does anybody recall the amount that we agreed, we just hired our cemetery manager?
Yes, we agreed to pay them the previous salary of $2,400.
For some reason, I was thinking it was a monthly,
Well,
that's an annual,
okay, so $2,400 is $200 a month.
I just. Think,
Yeah, because the other guy that did it was like in Pinconning or something, wasn't he?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I thought, because,
Well,
I
she
had a
worked
hard
in
time
Pinconning. She
finding
lives here
out.
in town, but anyhow.
no, there was a guy.
Right.
Oh, okay. Fire department. If you look at the top, we've got our sources of income.
did you get this from Roger? Did he submit? a
No,
budget?
Roger has not given me anything yet. and I have to sit down and work with him.
Well, thank you for doing this
Oh, all right.
on his behalf, Art. Thank you.
It is my job, but thank you, you're welcome. Crystal, no pressure, but I said, we're going in the coming year, we're gonna look for 15,000 grants.
That's all?
Right now, I haven't heard back from any of the three.
That's okay, look, it's,
If you get 115, we won't break.
but it's down from the 20,000 that they,
Yeah.
it put you down for the last time. I just thought 15 and we'll work on a plan and hey, we're all here to help.
Yeah,
And we'll do this. The operating millage, I took from 134,082 to 140. Some of that I think is just, if I look at where I think valuations are gonna come in, the millage will cover that. We might actually get a little bit more, because of property
Well, I
valuations
think
going
property
up.
valuation went up, what, 3 points?
but we also increased the operating millage
Right.
last
Yeah.
year.
No, in that, this reflects that,
Okay,
that. So
yeah.
it will, but the appraisals and the valuations,
The valuation went up.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
yeah.
So between the two is where you
Yeah.
think we'll come up with that extra.
I think we're okay for that, with that. Now, that's good, because that gets us to 155,000 income for the fire department. Then I took payroll expenses and I went from 36,700 to 45. And that is reflective of not only the couple $100 salary increases we passed on, but also the increased cost of runs.
The runs and the fire chief increase.
Yeah. And if you ask for exact math, I'll make something up for you, but it's, I think it's pretty good, pretty close. Because I'm lacking data of how many people runs we had last year. I can tell you how many runs, but I don't know how many people runs there were. And we will have better data, guys. I'm comfortable with that. Computer software is, I just took all this stuff and I copied last year's and I moved it over, with the exception of medical supplies. This $500 just seemed ridiculous. I mean, when I found out that those defibrillator single-use pads were like $700.
Right.
And they're in bad need of a suction unit,
Yeah.
which is like $400 something, $400.
Okay. So anyhow,
Could I just say, I agree with everything that you've done here. The computer software, I'm not sure, I would check with Kevin about that. We had a major software purchase, which helped significantly, not only for our,
and maybe we can save a few bucks there, but
I
I'm
think
thinking that might be just the annual cost of the Microsoft Office licenses for them.
this is not gonna be an articulate representation, but essentially, there's a numbering system to every type of call that there is.
Absolutely.
That we have to report to. And we know this because for all of the federal grants that we apply for, we have to have the numbers for each of those number sequences.
Right,
We purchased that 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
And so that was a huge expense there. I don't know that, there might be, like you said, an update or whatever, but we might be able to save some money there because I don't know that we have to repurchase that. Okay,
well, the good news is, if I go down here, I'm a little concerned, building maintenance is way low. At $3,000, I don't believe that's realistic. I believe we need to be spending a little bit more on building maintenance. And that's what I will find out when I talk to Roger, and Kevin has also been very helpful. I mean, they are really genuinely want to help. I just think they're not practiced at that.
also, I would make sure to talk to them about your education. You kept that the same. There's been increases into the amount of education that fire folks have to do and not just the amount of education, but how much that costs.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that
like
might
there's no
help.
free lunch anywhere. Yeah,
Right. It's almost
Again,
becoming a
guys,
deterrent.
absent anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
With that. Now, what we don't have that we did, I answered a question for myself. Actually, I didn't. I gotta give, I believe it was Ken Hauser who dug this one out. Under the emergency reporting for 911, down there, it was under capital expense, other income or other income and expenses. It was down there as $200. I couldn't figure out why the heck we just didn't throw something like that up in there. And that's because that is a subscription.
Yep.
It's accounting mumbo jumbo stuff.
Yep.
I
remember
Okay.
asking that.
Okay, anyhow, right now,
The other thing I would ask,
Yep.
or just for your own, when you talk with Roger, I think the dues will have to go up as well.
okay,
Just so dues and education, I think you'll see that increase.
okay,
I don't know, that's up to Roger, but I believe those are the two areas.
With it, we had 2 new firemen come out here recently, they're training the them guys, I know.
And gear and,
Yeah, I think we got the gear. I don't think we have the total training on it, so.
the fire run support,
please don't ask me what that's for.
well, that's typically like water, like, I believe.
I believe it's
Yeah,
stuff to
that's-
help
Just
them.
help them,
Sure.
especially if it's a long,
Get something
Well,
to store.
not only that, but they need some supplies on hand to give out to people that they may be.
If you're on a 10-hour run, you need a sandwich, or very that's what that's for.
yes.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And guys,
Thank you
this
for your
one,
patience.
I mean, and this one, we already know that this year we got hit with that door cost of like, I forget, it was like $18,000.
That's gonna come out of this fiscal.
If they get billed to us by June 30th, we're working hard to get that done. I think, yep, but we can only do what we can only do. Next, the improvement is just kind of the rainy day fund.
Yep.
Lake special assessment is the next page. I put down that our proposed assessment will be about $100,000. We'll need to do some math and go through and do some calculations with that. Following the directive of the board, we're going to go with the alternative of trying to just dust off the existing special assessment district and re-enable it for this coming year. But I still believe we're liable to have like a mailing, and so I put down $5,000 to cover the cost of a mailing for that.
I thought that was an expense we would avoid if we did the dust off.
No, we would avoid having to do that twice. We still might have to do, one of the things that the prior board did with the assessment is I think they did a great job of facilitating and getting that done. So getting it mowed, and I spent a fair bit of time talking to John Marsh, and I can articulate why the costs are what they are. So I don't feel like, I actually feel like we did, you guys, again, you're gonna get all the credit there. Did a great job of setting that up. Congratulations, thank you.
Pretty sure I voted against it.
But it was a good deal, it was, and he's
It was a
done.
smart thing to do.
It really was.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna come back and say, you guys absolutely, if you pardon my French, sucked at communicating what was done and why it was done.
Yeah.
And, no, you have to get better to suck. I mean, it was bad. I plan on trying to help with that to the degree I can. And I will try to do that, but I think we're gonna have to do some messaging out to the township, because there are a lot of confused people that said, wait a minute, I paid for this and you didn't mow in front of my house. And the answer is, may not need to, that we have this lake bed that has to get maintained. And that if you have lake access, we all have to maintain that. Because if you don't, you're gonna have this primordial swamp. And that's the part that I don't think we as a board did a terrible job letting folks understand that.
They don't read anything you send anyway, though.
Ma'am, I appreciate that, but if you don't try, then
No,
you're cold.
I know what you're saying though, cause I've talked to different people and they say, well, I just threw that away. Seriously?
So anyhow, I put in $5,000 there. If we don't need it, we're not gonna spend it. But that's down considerably from what establishing the district would be. I still have 2,500 in legal fees. Again, if we don't spend it, we're not gonna use it. I kept the licensing and permitting because I do know that there will be some licenses required. Especially there'll have to be some spraying done this year that we have done in years past, but we still need to get the permits. Those are annual things. So I'm
We are
projecting.
getting legal input on the dust off, yeah. right?
Oh, yeah, that's why I've got $2,500. Yes, ma'am.
I just don't want,
I understand, and I'm also gonna have to endure, wait a minute, I told you not to do this. And I said, yes, I know, but humor me. So that's where we are with lake special assessment. I also want to flag that Rothman said the Four Lakes Task Force will be issuing recommended mitigation approaches that we can take under advisement. So they may come back and say, you guys need to do some more. But I'll just let you know that.
is it gonna come out of their assessment?
No.
Should.
I'll ask the question again.
Parks and Rec. This one's down quite a bit from the previous years. I put in a block grant of $20,000 from the general fund to cover this. They've got an income of $20,000. I have a $10,000 legal limit there that should we continue with the park acquisition, there'll be money coming in to offset that, but that's just an expense we could see. There might be some real estate, I know there's a real estate appraisal that it may get done this year.
Baseball.
Yeah,
So we have,
Parks and,
I go from 11 to 14.
uh-oh.
Oh, no,
You got two?
I have 12 and 13, you don't?
No.
I can show you mine. Let me just, you're missing 12 and 13
Yeah.
there?
there's no-
I'll make a copy. I have a question, Art. You said that the 10,000 that you added should be offset from income. From where? Where are we getting income from?
I believe that the legal offset can be charged back to the property acquisition. And that will come out of the grants that we get. So the DNR will cover 60%, plus we got some money from Midland Area Community Foundation for that. And I don't have all
Okay,
the numbers. Mary Beth did a very nice job of laying that out. This is consistent with what she indicated the cost would be.
I'm just real hesitant to throw 10,000 more into Parks and Rec after everything we've spent. Hold on, I can't do
And depending on where the,
it.
and depending on where the acquisition goes and how fast or slow the state is,
Mhm.
that might be not a coming year, but a year after
Mhm.
kind of thing. I mean, we're on their time frame.
Could be, yeah, down the road. If it doesn't pass the period, it may fall into the next budget year.
Yeah.
long waiting.
Yes, ma'am.
Years ago back, when we were doing the township newsletter with stone and on a tablet like Moses,
I heard he was a nice guy, wasn't he?
He was a good guy. But I put in or Heather created a budget, or it was a pie chart of what, the county tax bill, the county portion, and then what the portion of the township got from that tax bill, and how the township spent it. Because most people get the tax bill and they see the bottom line,
Yeah.
and then they say, what in God's green earth are you doing with my tax stuff? And they don't realize, we get just a little tiny piece.
Yep.
You know, so that might be worth putting on the website.
As I write my monthly epistle to the residents, I will, I wanted to do some show and tell kinds of things, and that makes sense.
It helped, it helped.
I already wrote on that, Jen, sorry,
Oh,
with some
Okay,
of my notes on there.
that's good. Thank you.
So I also have a $5,000 printing bucket there that should we need to go out and do a mailing to the residents,
Mhm.
that's just, again, a placeholder. If we don't need to, we certainly won't.
Ah,
We
were trimming till we get to this. I like the trimming that we were on. I like that trajectory better.
We have, last year they had a budget of $24,000 of capital improvements. I put down 5. I think that might be generous. I know we're gonna have mowing, routine lawn maintenance, and some building maintenance. So the 31,750 is probably an overstatement, but I don't know what it is. I do know we wanna pay for some more stain. I got a report, Mary Beth said the kids had a wonderful time staining. I think they got more of it on the things than themselves, that was good. They were short about a half a gallon, and so she underestimated. They didn't quite get it all covered, but there'll be some other things that need to get stained and painted, and we'll just go back and cover that up.
When we come to voting, I'm just telling you ahead of time, I'd like to see those numbers a little lower.
Okay, what do you want them?
You talking legal?
And for the mailing, like I don't, or the printing, I don't understand what we would be doing there.
Well, if you have to have a printing and mailing going out to the,
For what?
I can only imagine that for the park acquisition, if we need to send out a mailing or an update. I don't expect that, but I said, that's not a bad bucket to just hold the dollars for. If you don't need it, we won't spend it. But
How about 7 and 3?
that's fine, and it's gonna come out whatever it comes out.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, let me ask a process question. This is just a workshop, we're not voting on anything tonight, right? So these numbers will come up at the final and we'll vote and debate then?
Well, no, I'm hoping we can debate now and that the GAA is,
Just
I'm hoping, because I
I'd
really
like to
would
see
like
those
to,
numbers closer to 7 and 3.
Jim, are you,
You're talking legal and,
Printing.
I have no trouble doing that, Crystal, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
And if we have to, we have to, but I don't like to set the bar, to say, here's all this money, go play. I'd rather see us
Okay.
approve an overage if we had to, but I don't anticipate. Maybe it's short-sighted on my part.
no, I don't see a lot of legal, isn't everything in the paperwork pretty well done?
No,
Oh?
no.
There's the appraisal. We did-
Appraisals are getting done, and then we have to
Right.
do the final PA, and that, I'm going to recommend we have a lawyer review all of that, just to make sure that it's done correctly.
Okay.
That, I have no idea, if we get challenged in court over this acquisition, if the state requires something, Crystal, we can take that all out. I'm just saying,
No, I don't.
Or you're talking about a different park, the new park?
I'm talking about the land acquisition that was started by the prior board.
Why did they do that? Nobody uses the ones that are here.
Well, so originally I was against it. And when I came into office, I said, a prior duly elected board did all.
I voted for you because you were against it, come on.
No, well, hang on. I'm not in favor of putting in splash ponds and things like that. But if we get the land, it will ultimately only cost us, after it's all said and done, $20,000.
So what are you gonna do with the guy that lives there?
He gets to live there until he passes. And so it's a life lease. So we will get that property for what will cost the town, you and me, $20,000.
But why do we need another park?
Well, it gets added to the existing
parks.
part. The other thing is, our township office is tight. And we're tripping over ourselves, as was evidenced by some of the prior conversations. At some point, not now, 10 years from now, we might need to add on. And at which point, you got the land already set up.
I've said my piece about Parks and Rec. I'll say.
So
when the numbers-
I'll bump that down. I have no trouble trimming it down, guys. Again, I trimmed it already, but we can. Private road special assessments, this is where you guys see the amounts that are there. Again,
And these are the numbers that equate to the increase that's on page 5.
yeah, well, it's not an increase. If
Or
you
the
go back to
3%
page
on
5, if you look at that, what the people who live in those special assessment districts
Mhm.
agreed to up to a 3% annual increase in their road assessment. Historically, we have assessed them some portion of that, from 100% of that down to nothing. I recall Craig giving me kind of Dutch uncle advice that you probably ought to put some money in there so that each one of the different private roads has a little operating cash if they need something done.
I guess, so maybe I asked it the wrong way. I'm aware of the 3% increase for each of the roads. This is what, on page 5, the 2025 numbers across the board reflect.
Mhm.
So what I'm asking is, does the 20,906.35, the total amount at the bottom of page 13, reflect that 3% increase for each of these?
No, the 20,906.35 is what is on deposit in the bank account for all the private
All right
roads.
now.
Okay, so,
And what we are having a very difficult time doing is sorting out how much of that is for each of the different private road funds. Can't tell you we won't get there, I'm just telling you it's been.
because it's all in one account.
Well, the records by the previous treasurers, we have been unsuccessful in finding them to tell us where all the different money is allocated. And that's something that we're gonna have to do to go through and try to find.
I'll find it. My question then, we don't have numbers for the proposed 25-26, but when we do, it will reflect.
It will be somewhere between 0 and those numbers. And I'm open to input. I was thinking of picking like the midpoint unless I get input on how they get plowed and realize that we probably ought to cover what the plowing costs are at a minimum.
But we're not getting billed for plowing either,
Well,
are we?
if I find out we are, I will have to make sure we get
Yeah, that's Delisle does that.
Because trustee Starkey gave me a homework assignment, and I will be on it.
Find out who is plowing, getting paid for that.
Yes. So the 20,000, does that make sense now?
Thank you.
And I'm hoping this is clear, but
Clear as mud.
well, there's a lot of stuff going on. Solid waste is the next tab, and I'm just gonna tell you, we're gonna have to raise the assessment. I don't have the math with me, I have it written down, and I'm sorry. My recommendation would be, given how many other things are going up, that we do enough to cover any shortfall that we had this year, plus what we expect to cover for next fiscal year. And I'm still thinking that'll take it up probably a good $50 to $60 per lot.
Mhm.
Because when we signed the last contract, we didn't raise it then.
Do we get from waste management?
We actually have a pretty good idea of what it costs.
Yeah.
And what I put down for the proposed expenses are pretty close to what I believe they will be next year. And again, I will tell you that our deputy treasurer has gone into excruciating detail
Mhm.
and pulled apart the contract and has a lovely piece of work that shows what it ought to be. And I will bring that with me.
You're talking to whatever, up another $50 per year
Per lot.
per lot.
And that will then just cover what the current.
Yeah.
And then maybe a couple extra bucks to cover the shortfall
We
we
had
had.
some increase in homes, we got a few extra lots
Yes,
that come in.
Thanks, everyone.
and what I will have is what does each lot cost on that. And we've also gone through, and I have not found any other people that should not be collected. We had that one resolution to fix those three people that were getting billed that shouldn't. I'm unaware of any others. I think, Crystal, you said you had one that might need to get at it. We'll go through, let's clean that up too.
I will reach out to you about that.
Swanton Hall. We had a budget of $4,000. Well, we get about 22,000 from the trust fund. I carry that forward for the coming year for income. Rental income, we budgeted $4,000. I don't know how we're tracking to that, but I'm just gonna say, let's look at trying to get $6,000 for it. I've gotten feedback from other townships officials who have come to our call and said, we ought to look at raising our rate because we undercharge. I'm just gonna put that out there that we will have
But we only rent to people in our township, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I
what
believe
we're
that's always been
supposed
the
to be.
rule, that is only, so it feels like we're raising the rate to our own,
Well,
own.
it is, but we also have improvements we need to take into account here. You know, we got caught kind of flat-footed. I don't know. We'll look at it.
Our cleanup too is costing us more,
Well,
so that might be,
yeah,
that might be an increase in.
well, or maybe we raise the cost of the deposit, or, I don't know. Deposit's refundable, and if you clean it up, then you get it back.
Yeah.
I'm putting that out there, because I know we've got look at that.
So you're asking a possible increase to rental rate and or the,
Deposit, fundable deposit.
How much is the deposit now?
I think the 100, isn't it?
It's either $100 or $200, ma'am.
I mean, it was $30 when I used it, but that was many years ago
Yeah, I
for
think it's
graduation
30,
parties.
so.
I just didn't know, and I guess I didn't find it when I looked for it.
I believe it's on the website, but we also are trying to go through and clean up parts of the website. I just did a total revamp of all the committees and boards and put out expiration terms and things like that. Schumacher has about half of that done.
I think Smartin looks good, thank you for doing that.
No,
I do know when I rented, the last time I rented the hall, when I came in there, we had to clean after the last people that had been in there, because I know they didn't leave it clean.
well, we're working on trying to keep it. I mean, guys, this is a treasure for us and we need to look at it.
It is. I'm looking at it.
The water district special assessment, that's all kind of just straight math. I plugged in what I believe to be close numbers. I know we're gonna collect a little less this year than we did last year.
I'm not gonna get any interest.
And I put 0 down, Jim, but it,
Yeah, we got something coming in.
okay, it'll be 2,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll,
But this is the one that you said, so what will happen?
Crystal, we're gonna have to figure out what we do, or our kids will have to figure out what they do.
I don't like leaving it there.
Well, I don't either, but tonight we're not going to, but,
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to,
That's fair. Thank you.
I'll add 2,000 to the interest.
And raise it a little bit that way.
General fund. I'm projecting an increase to the township operating income because I know property taxes went up, and I'm not saying we changed the millage. We keep the millage flat, but just kind of looking at that on that. Tax administration, we get that from the county for processing the taxes. We got $1,200 from the district court last year. I'm going to assume that our ordinance enforcement officer is going to extract another $1,200 from the courts, and we'll be good there. Cable TV royalties, we get $15,000 from Charter Spectrum for that. Crystal, just so you know, I didn't put any grant revenue down in here because I had that in the fire department.
Yep, thank you. We've talked about that multi-headed monster, the single-headed one.
State revenue sharing, I kept that flat. Metro Act, I kept that flat. State set reimbursement, I bumped that up a little bit. About 8%.
Home tax.
The state pilot tax, I kept that the same. Cemetery, income from that, I moved that to the cemetery, so we don't count that there. Jim, I didn't put down any interest, but we certainly could I could keep that flat.
Yeah.
Coming across. And permits, I said 3,000 because I don't have data to support, did we even do $3,500?
Right.
Although it feels like we did. Just by the number of Z-clubs we filed. So that brings us in at somewhere 486, if I add the 25,000 in interest, that gets us, a little, about 510.
There's 10 grand sitting there in refunds and miscellaneous. Refunds, I'm assuming is money coming in, and miscellaneous is money going out.
I have no earthly idea, so I left that alone. And that's this is not to disparage, because I don't understand how the books were kept prior. And so we're just, if I didn't understand, I figured I'd be conservative on that. Transfers out, we have 30,000 in block grants, that's down 10 from last year, 10 to cemetery, 20 for parks and rec. Township board, I kept that number flat. I believe that's not only salaries, but I also believe it's all of the other G and A kinds of
And
things,
the training and everything else. goes in there,
Supplies,
too.
Yeah,
training,
supplies
all of that.
and all that.
Classes.
I'd like to keep that there. I need to go back and provide a more detailed breakout of that. I'm hoping that I'll have that for the time for the GAA, but if not, we'll have something close for that. I kept the assessor's salary flat. I kept elections flat. And that may be a place to trim some because I don't expect a lot of election work, but again,
That's coming along.
I'm flying blind.
I think the question there would be two things. One would be to look to see how many elections were held in the last 4 years. And then also to call, I'm forgetting his name,
John Kiefer.
thank you. Yes. Call John to find out if there's been any increases in the supplies that we need, because it might even out, even if we have less elections, but the stuff costs us more.
Again, that's not a material overall, and, assessor, I kept that flat.
Mhm.
Clerk was a combination of salary, training, but in stationary. I left that flat, but what I'm gonna do is try to just move a bucket for supplies out of each of that. They had, supervisor had $500 of supplies, and I don't need $500. I mean,
Yeah.
we need to make sure we got copy paper and that our copiers are working. And a printer that runs fast.
Yes. Yes.
Board of review, I kept flat. Treasurer, I kept flat. Again, the treasurer, the only thing that they are going to get hit with is increase in postage from that for mailing out the tax bills.
I'm having a hard time here, granted, I'm an English teacher, so feel free to, tell me that I'm ignorant. But I'm looking at the clerk and the treasurer and that number there, that's got to include their salary.
It does. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then let's scroll on back up to total 101 under township board 193,897. Then that does not include salaries.
No, it probably includes things like insurance and
Insurance was,
40,000.
Yeah, $40,000.
So the township board would probably include the supervisor and,
no, because that goes under chief executive.
well, that's fancy. Where's that? Oh, I see.
That's right.
Okay,
And that's actually the official title from the state's chart of accounts.
but there is not a line item for trustees, so
Yes, no, there is not.
I think we're in the
hmm,
board cost.
interesting, okay.
And one of the reasons why the supervisor's line item went from 30 to 21 is I backed out the proposed increase that they had, that they ended up voting down, but never took it out of the GAA in all the spots. That was about a $10,000.
What, township hall,
At the office,
I believe.
No,
it is.
maintenance.
then that should say township office, because township hall is,
Well, I
think that is,
believe that's the official
that's why they.
Okay.
chart of accounts title, because if it has that little GL number next to it, that is the official chart of accounts from the state.
planning commission is gonna, yeah. So you increased it a little, but probably not enough, but that's okay.
Now, we can
Mm-hmm.
have that conversation, and if you want it higher, that's fine, but
I put that on my to-do list.
okay. I did get a letter from the planning commissioner wanting closer to, actually, I think it was 12 or 13, and I put it down to 2,500. And he has not seen this number, so he's liable to be upset with me.
I'll circle back on that for you.
Now, we can, this is just my proposed, I mean, I own this because I put the numbers there, but I also.
I'd like to
want-
see us at least meet them halfway. We budgeted last year 1,500, I appreciate you increasing it to 2,500, I think we have a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
The planning commission does in the next year, so I'd like to see us put it at least at 5. Because let's say we get to where he's projecting, it's a little bit less of a leap.
No, that's fine, I'm, Jim, what are your thoughts? I mean,
You're gonna have more monthly meetings?
no, I think it's really more for, there's gonna need help developing the new master plan.
Okay.
Short-term rentals ordinance,
You're gonna meet more frequently then? Okay,
there's gonna be quite a bit of work that has to be done. Yeah.
yeah, that takes a lot
We're
of
gonna
work.
have legal reviews on our ordinances, we have to work with Greg, the ordinance enforcement officer, because some of our language is binding him. We have to find a balance between not binding him, but also protecting citizens,
Sure.
and how do we mitigate that language change?
And you're expected to, 8 meetings, you have 12 or so, or 15?
That's what he's asking, I would ask that we put at least 5 there, or 8, somewhere between.
I put down $5,000 and we'll just
Yeah.
track it and
Okay,
see where we go.
thank you, I appreciate that.
I think you said, you talked about the duplex and going to zoning, and going for a ZBA request. I don't think he has to do that. Is it a,
R1.
it's an R1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we gotta go planning.
Is
What's
it?
a duplex in R1?
This is
You
the
gotta
first time
say-
hearing about anything that.
Wow, Art had so many communications.
I thought there is a lot at the corner of Francis Shores and Sand Beach. And it has been for sale for at least 12 years. And I got a call from somebody who's looking to buy it and develop it, but they want to put in a duplex.
I think you gotta go to planning.
And it's, okay, I thought it was
No,
a
no,
ZBA
no.
because it was an R1 property.
I'm not talking about it, but yeah, it's gotta go to zoning first.
Okay, well,
What,
you mean planning?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Send them my way,
I will.
happy to help.
I mean, it'd be nice, because right now it's growing a great set of
Yeah.
weeds and, what's that, goldenrod.
And it
It
should be
kills
planning
me.
and the zoning, but it should be taken the planning first.
Okay. I think they're gonna have a tough time fitting it on there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a teapot, but that's okay. The only thing that, for us to just be mindful of is I kept our road number flat at 255.
And that's not flat, that's a great even
Well, that's,
commitment.
yeah,
It should be noted that that's what we spend regularly on roads, we should never dip into 80,000, like. I know I said it, and I keep saying it. I won't say it.
Yeah.
no, please, I mean, look, we've got to get to it.
Roads and fire, roads and fire.
And we get it back, the information was shared too, we get some information back already, right?
Yes, and he took me through and he believes that for a very modest investment, they could improve their quality quite a bit.
For the drainage.
Yeah, well, actually, no, it's not drainage,
The
it's
sun and tree.
just cutting the trees.
They would increase the road bed.
And he said if we are flexible with them when they do it, and they wanna do it in the winter, and I said, I think that's best time to, they might get us a better rate. So anyhow, I'll have a,
You guys saw them in the winter, yeah.
I'm all for reduced rate.
well, and that way the firewood's actually, or the wood left over is better firewood because the sap isn't flowing, it's less
Right.
buggy and anyhow.
How did they ever mess that up the way they did? That little strip of shearer.
I don't know if you'd say mess it up,
Well, I mean, it's okay for their driveways and that, but I mean, the rest of it's clogged up with trees.
well, because a lot of people don't want trees cut down.
Mine just are flowing now.
I have a question.
Yes,
Can you explain the difference of business checking ACH and the township checking 5294?
well, those are all down at the bottom. Those are all the different accounts we have. We have like 18 different bank accounts on that. The ACH is mandated that we need a business ACH account that you do electronic transfers out of. And that's required by Huntington. And so that's why we have there, and that's supposed to be used to pay salary taxes to the state. Withholding taxes to the state. Then we have a savings and checking account. And the savings account, we get a little interest on, the checking account, we don't.
I have other questions, but they're not directly related.
Okay, well, anyhow, that's this, guys. I've made several notes. I will make those changes. We took some things up, took some things down. All in all, it's kind of here. I already,
We're not in the hole. That's the biggest thing. We have a little bit of splash on the bottom.
we got a little bit of room to operate. I think we are in reasonably good shape. If you guys are cool, I'd like to end the business meeting now and adjourn. And I could comment that we got out by 8:30, which was my goal. Unless you have other questions.
I have other questions, but they're township business, so maybe today is not the time
Okay.
for it.
Folks, thank you very much. I call this meeting adjourned. And I really appreciate you guys showing up and coming and great questions.
Well, you know what, if people would come to the meetings though, I mean, I had 5 kids, I was busy, I didn't come to them,
That's
but
not our fault though.
that's not your fault. I mean, that's not your fault.
Like the two sets of affiliated woodpeckers coming in. They're so fun to watch.
Oh, I know, but they sure wreck your trees.
Oh, yeah, they, but prior to the flood, I got the water, I had a flow tree, this big around. And it got broken down by a lightning strike one time, I had about 8 foot still there.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting there one day and I'm looking